Nacho, 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 nacho.
Hey YouTube, it's your boy Richard Razr Sharp, and I am back with another video, and this is a special video that I've recorded for all of my subscribers who have helped me get to 1,000 subscribers. So I said when I got to 1,000 subscribers I was going to do something a little different, something a little special for you, just to give you a bit of an insight into my journey into barbering and my background. And so this is that video. So guys, I really hope that you enjoy this video. It's a bit longer than my normal videos, as I'm going to be talking a bit about my history. I'm also going to show you kind of really where I started from, so you can get those insights where I grew up and if you want to say my start in barbering, etc. And I'm going to answer some questions that some of you may have had about me, Richard Razr Sharp. And yeah, guys, I really hope you enjoy the video. So yeah, watch it all the way through, share it with other people. I hope that my journey inspires you, but also inspires other people, maybe people who are thinking about getting into barbering or changing their career and joining this wonderful profession. So I really hope you enjoy the content, and please leave your comments, like and subscribe as always, and share it with someone else. Alright guys, let's get into it. Enjoy. Okay, so what first got me interested in barbering? I think the answer to that question would probably be growing up when I was very young. To be honest, my parents really couldn't afford to take me to the barbershop. So it started off with, you know, me getting haircuts at home from my mum, not really my dad. My dad wasn't any use with clippers in his hands, so my mum bought a cheap pair of wall clippers from Argos. For those in the UK, you'll know who Argos is. For those in America, it's like a shop where you can just go and get loads of different items, home items, loads of variety of different things. So yeah, she got a pair of wall clippers, and then my mum basically used to cut my hair, and as you can imagine, it looked terrible. So she would just take it all down on one level, couldn't shape up or anything. But then I also had uncles who could cut hair, so every now and then, at the time we were living in Kent, which is in the southeast of England, but my mum actually grew up in Brixton, southwest London, SW9. And so we'd go to Brixton to see my grandmother and some of my relatives, and I had uncles who could cut hair. So one of my younger uncles, he was really good with clippers, and he would give me a haircut when I'd go and see him. And when I got a haircut from him, my hair used to look dope. He could do patterns and everything else, and I think that's probably what first got me interested in barbering, in that I got accustomed to having really bad basic haircuts to then getting a really good haircut from someone who knew how to cut hair. That really got me interested in that. I just love the creativity of it, how you could just with one clipper, that's literally all you used to use was one clipper, do the fade, do patterns with it, shape up with that same one clipper, and the end result was spectacular. So that got me interested. And then I think following on from that would probably be the first time when I was then actually taken to a barber shop, which was by my dad. And I think at the time I was probably about 8-9 years old, and my dad took me to a barbershop in southeast London in Lewisham, and it was called Grant Salon, just off Lee High Road, for those who know the area. And I remember sitting in the barbershop for the first time with my dad, waiting and just being amazed at the environment and the atmosphere in the barbershop. And you know, it was a place, it wasn't just a barbershop, it was like a social club. It was a place where men came to gather. You know, there's always those 2 or 3 guys that sat in the shop all day talking rubbish and never actually got a haircut, and people cracking cracking jokes and talking about football and politics and everything else. And obviously this was at a time in the early 90s where there was still a lot of racial, if you want to say segregation, a lot of racial tensions, etc. So the barbershop was very much a safe place for black men to be able to express their views and just to speak openly. And so as a young black boy who was living at the time in the area which was predominantly white in Orpington in Kent, that was very eye-opening to me, just to see the whole barbershop environment and how it was a place for men just to relax and talk about life and relationships and everything else. And so that was probably what really got me interested in barbering and thinking about maybe at some point maybe wanting to be a barber and cut hair. Okay, yeah, I'll say that's how it started out for me. So, how old was I when I first started cutting hair? To my recollection, if I remember right, I believe I was 13 years old. And the way I started cutting hair was, at this point now, I was getting better haircuts more regularly. I was actually going to a barbershop, say like once a month, and getting a haircut. And I used to watch everything that the barber did. Watch how he's using the clipper, how he's using the lever and everything else. And so I would watch what they were doing, and I always wanted to try and cut someone's hair. So the first time I ever cut hair, I basically was at my cousin's house, and me and him are very close. He's more than a cousin, he's like my brother, he's my one of my best friends. And he was younger than me, so being my younger cousin, I could just tell him to do things and he'd listen because I was his older cousin. So I knew his dad had a pair of clippers and I knew where they were kept. And so I took the clips and I said, come on, look, I'm going to give you a haircut. It's going to be really good. So he was all really excited, thinking, yeah, I'm going to get a really good haircut, etc. I'm his big cousin. He thinks I'm probably going to do some dope fade, etc. And I basically just tried to replicate exactly what I'd seen the barber do. And to be honest, it went terribly wrong. So wrong that my uncle, when he got home, he basically had to cut off all my cousin's hair, so he was bald completely. I completely jacked it up. But that was when I first ever cut someone's hair at the age of 13. And then I would say I actually started cutting hair more around the age of 15. That's when I really tried to start cutting hair more and just kind of saying to friends, look, can I try and cut your hair, etc. But then I also started cutting my own hair as well. Okay, so how did I learn to cut hair? I've kind of already mentioned it, but basically I learned how to cut hair really from watching what barbers were doing when I'd go to the barbershop. I would just look at their technique, look at what they were doing with the lever, and then after a while I actually started asking questions. After that first experience with my cousin, then I actually just started asking questions every time I was in the chair of my barber. I'd ask him, oh, why have you moved the lever this amount? Why have you used this guard and that guard? And I just asked loads of questions. And fortunately for me, the barber that used to cut my hair, he was just really cool guy. So he would just talk me through everything that he was doing. And I said to him, you know, I want to try and cut hair. So it was almost like he was mentoring me whilst I was in the barber chair, just telling me what to do and how to do it. And so then that's how I first really started learning about how to cut hair. So when I first started cutting hair, how did I get clients? Firstly, I was very fortunate to have some family that would trust me to cut their hair. So I started off with family, and at this point I'm now like 15. And then at 16, you know, I finished at secondary school, or what my American viewers would say is high school, and then started to go to college. And I wanted to cut my friend's hair, so I'd say to them, oh, can I cut your hair, can I cut your hair? And some of them would say, okay, Rich, you can practice on me. But a lot of people were resistant because at this point, you know, you're 16, you want to look fresh, you want to look fly, you know, trying to talk to girls and all of this other stuff that young guys do, etc. And I wanted to cut more people's hair, but I only had a small number of people who let me cut their hair. So I realised at that point, one of the best ways I could advertise what I could do was to start cutting my own hair. So that was probably my biggest biggest success in terms of getting new clients was I started cutting my own hair, and I literally started off with doing one level all over, as we call it, a Caesar cut, one level all over, and then just started practicing shaping it up. And truth be told, there was plenty of times I jacked my own hair up and I got it wrong, and then I'd have to wear a cap for like a week or two for it to grow out, and then I would practice again. And I did that for about a year, but after a year I found I was consistently cutting my hair really well. And I started off, as I say, with a Caesar cut, and then from the Caesar cut I then started just doing a little taper fade because that was easy enough to do. And then eventually I saw one of my uncles cut his own hair, and I saw how he used a second mirror. He had a big mirror behind him and a smaller mirror in front, and he would use that to then fade the back of his head. So then I started practicing that, and I started doing my own fades, and then from doing my own cuts, everyone at college started noticing I always had a fresh trim. So they'll be like, "Oh, Rich man, like, do you go to the barber every week or something?" And I was like, "No, I do my own hair." And they're like, "What?" And they're like, "What, you do your own hair?" And people couldn't believe it. So when people saw how well I did my own hair, they said, "Can you cut my hair?" So I said, "Yeah, sure." So I literally, on lunch breaks between classes, we'd go into an empty room in college, and I would cut people's hair. I then started working part-time and and I was working in a phone shop, and then some of the people I worked with, I'd tell them I cut hair, and then after work I'd cut their hair out the back of the shop. I think I might have some photos that I might be able to show you of this, so if I do, I'll pop them up at the end of this little segment so you can see me literally. I was at work, after work done, going in the back of the shop, cutting people's hair. And that's the way I got clients, from people seeing that I could cut my own hair. And then once they trusted me because they saw I could cut my own hair, they'd let me cut theirs. And then people would see their hair and they'd be like, "Oh, who does your hair?" And they'd say, "Oh, Richard, he does hair," etc. And then that's how I built up a bit of a reputation in my college. And then that's also helped me build up a reputation in my local area, where I then started cutting hair from my home. And at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut to a different video that I recorded back at my old home, so I can kind of show you what that looked like when I first started out. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay guys, so here we are right now. We're at my old property where my mum lives and where I grew up. Spent 22 years of my life here. This is in St Paul's Cray in Orpington, and I grew up on the council estate behind me that you can see here. For my American viewers, our kind of council estates are basically our version of, if you want to say, your ghettos, your hoods. So not necessarily the most glamorous of areas, very working class, low income areas, etc. So this is where I started out at and lived here for 22 years. But what we're going to do, I'm going to take you into what was my first ever barber studio, that my mum had let me set up in her house. So yeah, going to take you to it and have a look at it. All right, let's go. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you where I first ever started cutting other people's hair. This was my first, if you want to say, barbershop, which was in the spare room in my mum's home. She was a great supporter of anything that I wanted to do, and so when it came to barbering, she also supported that. Now, I'll just warn you now, it doesn't look like what it used to look like when it was my little barbershop, but you'll be able to see the remnants or the residue of that. Okay, so at the moment it's all just storage now, but this used to be my first ever barbershop. So as you can see, I did this myself. So I had my mirror here, as you can see the Barberside sticker there, just so people knew that I was sanitizing my stuff and keeping it clean. Had my little shelf here. Now it's just got like old trophies from when I used to play football on it. And then you should be able to see underneath here, had like my little my hooks so that I could hook up my clippers. I had some more on the other side as well. And then I used to have carpet. There's a bed here now, but I used to have carpet on the floor here, and then my chair just in front. And this is where everyone in my area that knew I could cut hair would come and get their trims from me. Back in the day when I first started really kind of trying to take cutting hair more seriously, and my mum supported the vision and the dream of what I was trying to do, and she let me convert our spare room into like my little makeshift barbershop, and I had some little speakers so I'd have some music playing in here and everything else. So yeah guys, that's just a little bit of my history in getting started in barbering. So how I got the name Razr Sharp? Well, basically I was given that name by my clients. By this point I'd been cutting hair for a while. I was still doing it kind of on the side. You know, I was at like college and then I was working, then university and things like that. So I was still cutting hair on the side. But yeah, the name really came from one of my clients because when I was at university, when I was at university, I started, I helped a woman set up her own hair salon, and in her hair salon she wanted to have some hairdressers, some barbers, and then some women who could do like nails and stuff like that. So I helped her set up this shop. This was in Hertfordshire, in Hatfield, and helped her set up the shop. And then she said, look, do you want to work in the shop? And I said, okay. She knew I could cut hair, so I said, you know what, at the time I wasn't working a part-time job, I was just studying at uni, and I said, you know, it's a good way just for me to keep my skills sharp and to develop. So started working in her shop, and at the time there wasn't really any Afro-Caribbean barbers in the area, so we were the kind of first one there. And so clients started coming through the door, and I had one client called Tony who was a bus driver, and there were like 3 barbers in the shop, and 2 of them were African. I'm Caribbean descent, and I was the only one who knew how to use a cutthroat razor. They could all do good cuts, but they just used trimmers to shape up clients, whereas I always used the trimmers and then used a cutthroat razor to get it extra sharp. And Tony would only ever come and see me because he loved the fact that I knew how to use a cutthroat razor. So when I did my shape ups, they were super sharp, and that's kind of what I got known for. If you want to say one of my unique selling points was how great my shape ups were. So people would always come to me sometimes just to get a refresh after a week of regrowth on their hair for me to give them a shape up, or they would come to me to do their trim because they knew that my shape ups were extra sharp because I used the razor. So he referred to me as Razr Sharp because I knew how to use a cutthroat razor, and so that's how the name began, and I just loved it and I ran with it and have continued to run with it since then. So that's how I got the name. Okay, so a mistake I made with a client's hair. Now let's be real, every barber makes mistakes. We all do it. Doesn't matter how long you've been cutting hair, etc. We all make mistakes along the way, and I think one mistake that always stands out in mind that I kind of chuckle about privately when I remember it, it was at the time when I was at university, and I was cutting in the shop that I helped this lady set up, and I remember a guy came in, and at the time, you know, getting your hair texturized was kind of one of the in things. So this guy came in and he wanted to get his hair texturized and then cut and everything. So I was still new to kind of texturizing hair. I'd done it a couple of times on myself, etc. And this guy had really quite thick, big hair. Now, I made the mistake, and it was funny because one of the older barbers in the shop tried to kind of advise me as to what not to do, but he didn't want to make me look, if you want to say, stupid or like a novice in front of the client, but he was trying to kind of gently steer me towards doing it a particular way, and I didn't listen because I didn't want the client to kind of think I didn't know what I was doing. So I basically went straight to kind of you know, putting Vaseline around his hairline so he didn't get burnt from the perm, and then I put the product into his hair and then began combing it through. And where I made the mistake was his hair was so thick that basically the ends of his hair got texturized and everything under else barely got touched. So then when it came time for me cutting his hair, I actually cut his hair, and basically there was no texturized effect after cutting his hair because the perm had only really got to the top, it hadn't got underneath. I should have really listened to that older barber and just cut his hair first and then texturized it, and he'd have got the desired look he wanted. And yeah, that experience cost me a cut, because in essence I couldn't charge him for the cut because I'd used up his texturizing product which he had paid for, and then not delivered the service he wanted. So in the end I just had to let him go, and he came back and he saw the other barber, and he did it properly. So yeah, that was a mistake that stands out in my mind that I made, and yeah, didn't make that mistake again. But we all make mistakes, isn't it? That's how it goes in this game. You live and you learn. Okay, some of my best experiences as a barber. Well, there's been a lot. Let's see, I've been cutting hair since I was like 15. I'm now, 35, going on 36. Been a lot of experiences, but I think some that would stand out, I'd probably firstly say, do you know what? Just the times where, when you cut a client and you just see that they love the haircut, that never gets old for me. I still have a passion for cutting hair purely because of that. Those times when you just finish a cut and you see the change in the customer's demeanor, and how they see their shoulders go back, they've got that extra layer or level of confidence, etc., because they look good. That always wins for me. But I think some experiences that I've had, I'd say probably maybe I think it was let's see, 2019 was probably a good year. I actually got to travel a couple of times that year before COVID hit. So I got to travel to Spain and to Cyprus as a private barber to do work for a couple of clients who were getting married. One got married in Cyprus, one got married in Spain, and it was beautiful. One, to get to travel, see different parts of the world, and then just to deliver that experience. And there was a lot of learnings in that, in terms of equipment to take when traveling abroad, and having a good setup, etc. But that was really good. And then for me also, once again, the satisfaction that when I got to see the wedding photos, the client's hair looked immaculate. They were super happy with the service that I delivered, and they're still clients of mine to this day as a result. So yeah, that's probably, say, some of the best experiences I've had in barbering. Okay guys, just a quick thank you from me once again for watching this video. Please share it with other people. I hope it's inspired you in some ways, educated you in some ways, and made you laugh a bit as well. But guys, once again, I just really appreciate all of you for watching my videos, for subscribing to the channel, and I'm going to bring some more content to you all soon. So watch this space. Take care guys, and as always, peace.